But as I've said, these values here don't mean a thing unless you specify any in the arrangement window. Let's close this thing a little bit again. You've got a mute field here. Now you can't hear the bass drum. Bass drum's back. Now we can just hear the bass drum, which is the same as soloing the bass drum on its own by pressing the drum solo. Again, I use the arrow keys to go down these tracks. Now I'm soloing the snare, and now I'm soloing the closed hi-hat. Let's switch them off again. Let's have a look at these values. That's the bass drum sound. The bass drum sound is generated by pressing a C on the keyboard. The C is your input node, C1. And my synthesizer has got the bass drum sound on a C1 as well. So what I'm doing is nothing really. The signal goes in on a C and it goes out again on a C. But in theory I could send, whenever I press a C, I could send it out to a different note, to C#1 for example. But now, obviously when I press a C1, Cubase changes the value to a C#1 and my synthesizer has got a side stick on C#1. So that's why I hear a side stick on C, and if I hit the C# key, I hear the same side stick. Can be very useful, can be confusing as well. Usually people don't mess around with these settings, but you're very much free to do so. This Q value here is going to be quite important for you. It determines the spacing or the positioning or the resolution of bass drum notes when you add notes with your drumstick. I'll switch on the speaker so we can hear things. I can add notes on 30-second note level, like this, or delete them like that. And if this one was set to 8th notes, then I can only add 8th notes. One there, but none here. It took that other one away again. I can add one there. Can take them away. Let's say you're doing a hi-hat pattern. I'm going to select these hi-hat notes for a bar. Let's just do a bar. Delete the notes. Set the hi-hat to 8th notes. Pick up my drumstick, and I'll just scroll along here to get some 8th notes. You probably can't see me doing this on the screen, but what I'm doing is I'll keep my mouse button pressed, my left mouse button, and just scroll along this line, and as I go along, all the hi-hat bits are being added in the right positions. And this is the result if this is set to 8th notes. I delete them all and do the same, but this time I'll set the Q value to a 16th note. I'll pick up my pencil and I'll drag my notes across, and you can see I've got lots of 16th notes here now. Let's give that a listen. Yeah, not bad. Having a value here which is too high can be a bit of a pain. So let's say I've got 64th notes here, and I want to add a simple drum pattern like doom jack, doom doom jack. I go doom jack, doom doom, doom doom jack. So this is not this work, but you can see that as soon as I add notes, I need to be very careful of where I place them. I'm not too bad actually, I must admit. But this one there was slightly off, and that one was off as well. I was going to delete this note here, but because I didn't aim properly. Now this one I'll delete that note, and I want to add another note there. That was okay. I want to delete the note, and I ended up adding another note. So Having too high values here is a bit of a pain. I personally recommend setting these to 16th notes for all of the notes. So you press Alt and select 16th notes. Let's have a look at the next section. I opened this bit up a bit, and here you've got 4 velocity levels ranging from 120 to 110, 90 to 70. And as you know, when you add drum sounds, it's all about dynamic. I'll move the transport bar, I'll show you what I mean. Snare drum. These are the velocity values for the snare drum. And this is our first bar. Now if I add a new note, this note gets the velocity of 120. As you can see up here, that note is 120. Now if I add another note, but this time press Shift on the keyboard, this one here has got a velocity value of 110. For the next note I press Control on the keyboard, so press Control, velocity value of 90, 90. And now I press Shift and Control at the same time, play another note, and I get the velocity value of 70. So this is without pressing anything. Level 3 is with pressing Shift. Level 2 pressing Control at the same time. Sorry, just Control. And level 1 is when you press Shift and Control at the same time. You can change these values to levels that suit you. Let's say 30. Level 2, let's have 50. And let's do 90. And with snare drums, sometimes you use a lot of ghost snare drums, so you could fill it up with. I'm gonna press Shift and Control now, and now I'll press just Control 30. Let's play it. Did you hear that? It adds a bit of variety to it. 30 might be a little bit low, so let's say we'll use 45. Instead of 50 we go with 70. We'll do the same trick again. We'll move the note. Let's press Control and Shift at the same time, and you can see here the values become a little bit bigger. I'll delete this note. A little bit larger, a little bit. That wasn't as I expected. And let's just press Shift on this one, and let's play it. That was a bit better. Obviously you can still modify the velocity values with a pencil down here direct, and for the snare drum it might be a good idea to keep the snare on 32 for the snare rolls. So I'll keep my finger on Shift and Control and add a little bit of a snare roll here, but this time I'm going to use the cross and make the snare go higher like this. That's just to give you a few ideas. Obviously, if you want to change the values of all the columns, then you need to keep your finger on Alt while you're changing the values here. And I mean, you could go from, for example, you could do 120, 90, 60, 30, or instead of going down from 120 to 90, you could just go in steps of 20, i.e. 120, 100, 80, 60, or anything you like. Finally, I'll just show you how to rearrange the tracks here. You just pick the track up and drop it below another track. And you can just double click on here and just give it a different name. Let's call it bass drum, or just BD. Let's call the snare SN, double click, SN for snare. Let's pick up the bass drum track again, move it up a little bit. Bass drum snare, you can move the hi-hat up. Sometimes the view disappears. move the side stick. And you get a slightly different view here. You get the typical bass snare view, and it might be a bit easier to see what's happening in the song if you arrange the tracks in that way. Take the pedal hi-hat with you as well, and the open hi-hat. Put that one in between. Yeah. So this is the open hi-hat, the closed hi-hat, and whenever you've got one down here, that'll be the pedal hi-hat. All of the settings you do here, like the track name, the con settings, the input and output settings, the sound modules and the channel settings you use, and the levels, are all part of a drum map, which you can set up and change, and you can make different drum maps up for different instruments that you use, and you can call them up from the arrangement window. If I close this one here and make this window a bit larger, if you've got a drum track selected, it says down there in the inspector drum map, and the drum map we're using here is more or less standard general MIDI drum map with all the standard general MIDI instruments, which you should have as well, I suppose. And sometimes you don't need all these instruments, or you want to see more or different ones, you want to make up your own instruments. You can then just modify this list as you wish and save it under a different map. There's a drop down menu here. You can save a new map and load other maps as well, and just whenever you work on a new song or a different bit of equipment, you can quickly set up a map, and it's very, very handy to have.